Hello. As I've been going through a healing journey, I've been sharing my story and have been really intentional about what I feed my mind and my soul. I've been listening to words that heal, words that ground me, words that remind me of who I am. And along the way, I came across some incredibly powerful insight from Brené Brown that truly helped me through one of the hardest seasons of my life. Brené Brown is a researcher, author, and speaker known for her work on vulnerability, courage, shame, and emotional healing. She spent years studying human connection and discovered that embracing vulnerability, not avoiding it, is what leads to deeper love, belonging, and personal growth. Her teachings have helped millions of people understand that healing doesn't come from being perfect, but from being honest, open, and willing to feel. She's also the author of best-selling books like Daring Greatly and became widely known through her powerful TED Talk on vulnerability. After a recent breakup rooted in a traumatic experience, mental, verbal, physical abuse, there were moments I didn't know how to move forward. But these words met me in that pain. They helped me breathe again, reflect, and slowly begin to heal. And I believe words like this aren't meant to be kept, they are meant to be shared. So here we go. Staying hurt doesn't protect you, it keeps your life small. You shrink to fit the pain of the wound. There's a term in trauma recovery called integration. It's different from resolution. Resolution is when everything is solved, forgiven, moved out. Integration is something else entirely. It's when you take what happened and you let it become part of your story, but not the whole story. It means the pain gets a seat at the table, but it doesn't get to run the meeting. That's peace. It's saying, I'm not denying what happened. I'm not excusing it, but I am choosing not to carry the weight of it every day. And maybe that feels unfair. It did to me for a long time, because if I let go of the anger, if I stop replaying the fight in my head, then who's holding them accountable? Here's the uncomfortable truth. They're probably not thinking about it. You are the one losing sleep. You're the one reliving it. Making peace isn't about them. It's about you reclaiming your mind, your body, your energy. Peace doesn't say you were right. It says I'm done letting this pain steal more of my life. That's not permission, that's power. I didn't believe that at first. Honestly, I used to think boundaries were cold. I thought setting them meant shutting people out or building walls to keep others at a distance. But what I learned going through research and in my own messy, imperfect life is that boundaries aren't about keeping people out. They're about keeping you grounded in who you are. When you're dealing with someone who you can't reconcile with, maybe someone who continues to deny the truth, maybe someone who continues to deny the hurt they caused, or who refuses to take any accountability. It's easy to get stuck in this loop where you feel like you should keep the door open, and maybe out of guilt, maybe because you've been taught that cutting people off makes you cold or unforgiving, or maybe deep down you're still hoping one day they'll wake up and finally say the thing you've been needing to hear. And listen, I get that there are people in my life I waited years to hear from. I kept the line open. I kept showing up, and it wasn't always brave. It was sometimes about fear. Fear of being seen as harsh, fear of being called selfish, fear of being misunderstood. But what I've learned is that when you keep showing up in a relationship where your boundaries are constantly being pushed, or worse, ignored, you start to disappear. Not all at once, not dramatically, just little by little. You get quieter, you stop asking for what your needs are, you second guess your instincts, you shrink. And here's the thing, you can't be compassionate towards others if you're constantly abandoning yourself. You can't show up from a place of love and strength if you are constantly depleted, resentful, or wounded. Boundaries are the way we stay in integrity with ourselves. They're how we say, I can care about you and I can care about me. They're how we stop confusing kindness with self-sacrifice. I remember a conversation I had once with someone who had hurt me deeply. They wanted to reconnect, but not in a way that felt safe, not with accountability, not with real change, just a kind of surface level reconciliation that would have required me to pretend the past didn't happen, and I felt this pull. Maybe I should just do it. Maybe it's a loving thing to do, but my body said otherwise. My gut felt tight. My voice got small, and I realized something important. My peace can't come at a price of my truth. I can still wish them well. I can still hope they heal. But I can do that from over here. There's this belief floating around that boundaries are about punishment, that if you draw a line, you're being spiteful or dramatic. But real boundaries aren't about hurting someone else. They're about honoring what you need to be emotionally well. They're about being clear. This is what I can give. This is what I can't. This is what I need to feel safe, to feel whole, to stay rooted in love and not resentment. And here's the unexpected twist. The clearer you get with your boundaries, the more compassion you'll have because you're no longer performing peace while secretly drowning in pain. And honestly, there is no equal advantage. You're not being cruel when you protect your peace. You're being honest, you're being brave, and you're giving yourself the space to heal without reopening the wound every time someone wants to pretend it never happened. When reconciliation is impossible, you don't just grieve the relationship, you grieve the fantasy of what it could have been. This is something we don't talk about enough. We understand grief when someone passes away, so we send flowers, we make casseroles, we give each other space, we cry and fall apart. But what about the kind of grief that doesn't come with a funeral? What about the kind of grief that lives in silence after a friendship ends, after a parent walks away, after a sibling becomes a stranger? That's called ambiguous grief, and it's real, it's exhausting, and it's invisible. And sometimes it hurts just as much, maybe sometimes even more than the grief we can name. I've sat across from so many people in my research in my life who are struggling with unreconciled relationships. And almost every time, underneath the anger, the numbness, the confusion, there was a grief, and not just for what happened, but for what never happened, for the conversations that never came, the apologies that were never offered, the healing that never got the chance to begin. And here's what's tricky, because grief doesn't fit our usual boxes. It's the evidence of our humanity. When you love someone or even just hope to, you build expectations, dreams of future, and when that's taken from you, you have to grieve it. We think grief is reserved for the moment when something is over, but sometimes we grieve things that never really started. A mother who is never emotionally available, a best friend who ghosted, a partner who never saw you clearly. And when we're trying to make peace without reconciliation, we're not just letting go of a person, we're letting go of an idea, an image, a possibility, and that's no small thing. I used to believe that moving on, getting over it, that grief was a process with a finish line, 5 steps, and then you're done. But grief doesn't work like that. It loops, it surprises you, it shows up in a random song or a birthday you forgot but then you remembered. It's not linear, it's not neat, it's just human. What helps us is naming it, saying this is grief, even if no one else sees it, even if the person who hurt you doesn't acknowledge it. When you name the grief, you stop gaslighting yourself. You stop pushing it down with shame and pretending you're fine, and you start making space for healing.